take those sounds of the sun for you. There's nothing in this world that I. Remember the song? If I can be
Yeah,
your
girl.
girl. AP, wake up.
I'm awake.
It's Friday.
Oh, I'm tired. I had a long one today.
Look, I had to go to Mickey D's and get me.
Pause. Y'all got me acting stupid. I hate that.
Uh,
I
that's
started.
never that's never a pause for the ladies.
Tara, you
You're
fine.
amongst gentlemen, though, so that's still a pause.
He ain't paying attention.
What y'all talking about? What y'all talking about?
He said
All right,
he had
let's get.
a long one today.
Uh, so last night, y'all, let's get into the. Oh, I didn't do a little introduction, did I? So, hi, happy Friday, everybody. Let's introduce our panelists for tonight. We have Mr. AP, HD, Mistaken, and I am Shan Monet, and this is a chic critique. And this is like a weird angle.
It is.
Do you want me to change it?
You're looking down on us. I don't like that.
As you know, sometimes you gotta look down on people. You know. So, yesterday, and they talked about this yesterday, and AP is always in the chat, so he knows about the whole Kamala Black situation, but I'm gonna give him an opportunity because he has a super chat to get his opinion in. But tonight, honey, you on the panel, so get it all out, get it all out.
I'm trying to get it all in.
So what you was saying last night, AP? What's the dealio, honey?
I don't remember what it was in reference. Most of the time, whenever I'd send a super chat, is in reference to a
What is
comment
it about
someone made.
being black?
Um, so I believe that most Indian people like they would never say that they're black.
Mm-hmm.
They would never say it. They
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't even want to be categorized as black. In most cases, Indian people see black people as a lower class, black Americans especially as a lower class than them. They also over in India do have um, color color issues as well, and I would say that in probably most countries. So I think that Kamala panders intentionally because she recognizes that she cannot win without a minimum 85% of the black vote and high turnout. So she's doing what she can to try to solicit that vote without telling anything about policy points or past history. But I was actually talking to Miss Taken offline last Friday, and I said that what I told her, and I think I've actually switched my opinion on this, was that it's hard to deny that she's black when you look at her, but she's definitely not African American.
Mm-hmm.
However, the further you dig into her background, there's a reason why, up until here really recent, had she really owned any part of the blackness. So I would actually have to say, for her as an Indian woman, she probably thinks that she's her position and her life is elevated higher than black people, and that she isn't black American. That she is, in fact, she embraces that Indian heritage, and that's my opinion on it.
Say it a lot. Sorry, I didn't miss you. Anybody else?
You're on mute. HD, you're on mute.
The mic was muted, but I honestly don't care anything about Kamala or this race. You just pick your poison. No matter who's the president, you're screwed. So it doesn't matter to me.
I don't know if I agree with that either, because I think there's a right way and a wrong way to vote on this. And I've been doing a lot of thinking in regards to how I want it to go this uh, um, political cycle. And I think there is a right way, because my question is, name one policy where it was detrimental to the black community that Donald Trump backed, signed, or supported. And what I have found so far, I haven't found anything that's truly negative, that negatively impacted black Americans. On the other hand, we know what Kamala's history has been. And over the last week and a half, she's flipped on damn near everything that she has preached up until 2022, maybe. And there's no way you can tell me that a 55 plus year old woman, 54, whatever she is, um, has over 2 years changed her political stance on everything that she's believed in throughout her entire political career. It's hard for me to buy it. So I think there is a right and a wrong on in this particular race.
The right thing to do is not to vote for either one of them. Vote for somebody else.
Like
Uh,
Kennedy.
what I won't do, the one thing I will never do is tell somebody how to vote. And I've stood fast on that, and I've always said that, you do your research and pick who you decide to pick based off of your beliefs and what's right for you and your family. I'll never tell somebody how to vote, but for the first time in several election cycles, I feel confident in what I'm going to do this particular political season.
So this is the thing, right? So when so having political views is one thing. We can definitely say that we disagree with political views, but you can't just take away somebody's blackness just because you don't like them or you feel like they're not black enough. Now I do believe that people can be out of touch with their blackness, right? They could not work, but you can't just take, we can say the same thing from, like we say, like I think mistaken brings up Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey never talks much about being black, but she has a black dad. So whether she likes it or not, she's got black blood, right? And so we can just say that they're just out of touch, but we can't just say, okay, they're not black, because the reality of the situation is her mom is an Indian, a darker skinned Indian. We know how that is in India. Her dad is the Jamaican, a Jamaican. I would assume Afro Jamaican by the way he looks. And when you think about the 80s and 90s, people did not dissect their ethnicity the way they do now. I think Tiger Woods may have started that crap. Remember how he was like, I'm Blasian, and we like, what the hell is that? Nobody's ever done that. If you grew up in the 80s and 90s, you was either black or you was white. And maybe there was some places there were others.
Hispanic. Those were the three.
Those
Either
were
black or Hispanic. You
people
fill in
didn't go
those.
all into, oh, my mama is that started later in life. You know what I'm saying? So, and let's just say, even if it did start early in life, no matter what you call yourself, you got to think about how society sees you. If you have color, I don't care what you call yourself, you're going to have a black experience, because it ain't about what you see, it's about what everybody else sees. And at the end of the day, whether they're Indian or not, they have a minority experience. She is not a minority. And we are all minorities just trying to figure this whole thing out, right? Now, if we battle policy, that's a totally different, like you said, okay, there's some things I don't agree with, and that's how we need to be voting anyhow. It shouldn't be about the color of their skin. It shouldn't be about anything other than that. But when we sit here and argue about who's black, who's not, like, what? It's like, oh, I don't like them, so they ain't black, or they're out of touch with being black. You ain't act black because black comes with an act. You ain't act black since you was 15, 20, so you're not black enough. What?
The problem is,
who gives people power to take away people's black? And what does black look like?
The problem is that Kamala has never shown to embrace any type of blackness aside from attending an HBCU, and even that, in my opinion, this is just my opinion part, is highly questionable. The difference between Mariah Carey, when you look at what she's done throughout her career, she's embraced that side of her. And then you use Tiger Woods as an example, and you said Blasian. The first part of that is black Asian. Hold on. The first part of that is black Asian, which means that he's embracing that black part of him by saying just simply Blasian.
When have you seen Tiger Woods embrace black? I'm just curious.
When didn't you just say he said Blasian, right?
Okay, but when have you seen?
Wait a minute. By saying Blasian, that's him embracing the black part. As a matter of fact, that's him embracing the black part before the Asian part, because it's Blasian.
AP.
That's because I'm trying to do it the other way around. Won't
just
work.
All right, and then not the same word. She's doing the same thing he's doing. She's saying black, even though neither one of them roll that way. So what is the difference? The difference is she has never, not once, and throughout even her political career, has she really embraced it. She was on a cooking show with Mindy, and you see what she embraced, right? It's all Indian, and if there was anything to break out, I assure you, her mom
she's
is
rocking.
Indian.
So fuck her dad then. Like
no.
Like who was a professor at Stanford who she hardly ever speaks of. Listen. Like look, what did the one lady say? She's basically her dad is basically a cliff note in her book. Like he's mentioned 3 times in her book. But her mama's all throughout it.
So AP, what is it? What defines a person being black?
Mama raised her.
What defines a person being black?
What defines?
I thought it was a race thing. Obviously it's a way you act, but what defines a person being black? In
my opinion.
No, I want the real definition of. It's too many opinions.
It's all an opinion though, Shan. You're like nobody would be able to define that for you. Like I can define hip hop culture. I can define what an African American is. I can define what an Asian American is. I can define what an Indian American is. You're asking, what is a black American? The one thing that black Americans have in common is a shared experience. Like.
She didn't say
or black or black. So all I can speak of is the black in okay.
When you get an application and it asks you, "Are you black?" Who is okay with writing down that they black?
If it asks me if I'm black or white, I'm always going to choose black. But it doesn't ask you that. It asks you if you're African American. It asks you if you're Caucasian American. It asks you if you're a non-Hispanic Latino black. It asks you if you're Pacific Islander. It asks you if you're Asian.
Right.
I don't know if it asks if it's Indian yet, but I'm sure that's probably coming too.
So we agree that there are different forms of black, right? Because she didn't say African American. She said I'm black. So so if you're saying that Afro Latina can be black,
I didn't say that either.
So you just said on the application they'll ask you, are you black?
They don't
ask you, are you Hispanic?
That was in reference to your question. Black to me is a shared experience among a group of people. I don't think that she has a shared experience of anybody on this panel.
None of
Which
us.
But
Were,
we all had.
but
I
she
can
has a
guarantee
shared
that we can
experience
find some correlations in our own
She
experiences.
has a shared experience with me as a black woman. She is of my sorority, and
So is two white ladies.
I too went to an HBCU. So
So did two other white ladies who were also in the same sorority with her or with you guys. They're in the same sorority family. I don't know how y'all classify it. So are they black too?
well, they don't have African blood in them. There's a
so
difference.
Now,
listen, let
see,
me.
now you're redefining it.
No,
You see what
I'm
you
gonna
just
I'm
did?
tell
defining it. Okay, so I'm defining it like the government
you.
defines it. I'm not defining it as an opinion. I'm defining it as how the government defines it.
Well, I'm gonna tell you in terms of black, what it typically means in general. Is typically the word black is an umbrella term for referring to those of the black diaspora, right? So that can include Jamaican, so you have black Jamaicans, you have Latinas that are black, so that those would be black Latinos or Afro Latinas. You have black Indians, so it's any of those that are in that black diaspora. It's not just African. So black is the umbrella term that captures all of that. Now, when you want to get more specific, like what you were saying, AP,
Ethnicity.
she's not right, black American. Well, that would be nationality as well.
That
She would be black American, right? So at that is something totally different than when you're talking about when you keep saying like she's Indian or she's Jamaican. Even Jamaicans in America will say that they're Jamaican first. They will say, I'm Jamaican, even if their parents were from Jamaica and they were born here. You'll ask, oh, I'm Jamaican, but they're American. That's what they're identifying, even though they were born here. And I know that, like being in New York, you're around Jamaicans, you're around Puerto Ricans. When you ask them what they are, they go with where their family is from, even if they were born here. And that's the norm. So I think for me, it may be my experience in terms of blackness and black people has been different growing up in an area that was so multicultural. So I think in the South, it may be, well, I ain't gonna say maybe, that experience have been very different. So when I'm hearing this, and again, my thing is, I do think policies and stuff that y'all are talking about is more important, right? Than this issue. But it
for
seems
sure.
like this issue has taken precedence over really. I'm gonna be honest. For me, I spent more time looking at her background than I did necessarily the policies that are, because this has taken precedence over all of that. And it, to me, it just doesn't make any sense, because kind of like what Shan was saying, if, and I had said this in our chat when we were talking before, if she did not open her mouth and say a word, what would most people in America think that she is? They would not think that she's Indian until she opens her mouth and say, I'm Indian. They would perceive her to be a black woman. So even if she said she was or wasn't or not, it's the way other people perceive her. And I think now that she's in the spotlight for this, that's coming up as a way to discredit her or whatever. Whereas if you want to discredit, that's the last thing that should be on the list if we're talking about policy. I think you guys have good points when y'all are talking about other things as related to what she did prior to, her position as vice president.
And I
Those
think that
are the
that
points.
that should be set aside from being black, because we know many of black people who sell out. We know tons of them. This is not a new show. So if you want to say she's they call it a sellout, or if you want to say she don't do nothing, that's a totally different situation, because we know plenty of people who've done that. But it doesn't mean they're not black. It just means they are sellout.
Clarence Thomas being one of them.
I disagree with that too.
Now, is he black? Is he black?
I don't consider Clarence Thomas a sellout.
Be black.
You don't have to, but that doesn't mean a lot of other people
I
do.
know some that do, but I'm saying I don't. And
Mm.
so that's when we're talking about defining things. And I wouldn't have an issue, if she was simply authentic, but she's not being authentic. That's my biggest issue is don't pander, be you.
When
Be
have
you is got
this is not
being
pandering?
you.
I
I
guess
one thing one so the one thing that I can say about President Obama, the least thing he was at least authentic. And that's how you get votes, by being authentically you. She, in her entire career, this is the problem with her. In her entire career, she's been the first Indian woman to do X, Y, and Z. She was the first Indian woman to become vice president. She was the first Indian woman to become AG of the state of California. She was the first Indian woman senator from the state of California. Those are her boasts. Her boasts. But
Well,
now that you're running a national campaign, now that you need something from black folks, and the one thing black folks prefer is authenticity anyway, because we're gonna read through the BS. Now she suddenly chooses to say, or let me rephrase, because she didn't exactly say she was black either. Like, let's go ahead and keep it a stack if we're gonna use her words. Um, she, if memory serves, it was the word Afro is what she used. Stay with that then. Stay with that. Don't pander. Roll with it. My father is Afro Jamaican, and my lineage looks like this. Roll with it. You couldn't. She wouldn't know who fucking E40 was. She would barely know Too Short, and the only reason she probably know him is because he's global now. But she grew up during that era. If she was in California, but she wasn't. She was in Canada during that explosion. Once I actually did a deep dive.
yeah, they said
But
that she
own that part. But own it though. Like, that's my big issue. Own it. Be authentic. Tell us about you, then tell us about your policy. Don't do this wishy-washy thing that she's trying to do, and just embrace who she naturally is. We will figure the rest out.
was
Don't get
she
a fake southern accent when you go to Atlanta. Like, you've never had a southern accent. Don't fake that shit.
this
AP,
We
last
gon'
AP, is she doing it or are
I
we
can
doing
barely tell Shan on that picture. Like,
oh,
there's a glare.
definitely going through her Howard times.
it? AP, did she
There's a
was
huge glare. I'm sorry.
is
I'm
she
listening to you, mistaken.
I told
I
him
was asking the question is, do you think she's doing it or we doing it? Because I'm gonna be honest, like you, I don't hear her saying much about the heritage until somebody else is saying something. So I think it's more of us putting it up on her, and then like most people feeling the need to have to defend themselves. Because even
You
with
raise an interesting question.
even with Obama, when they were talking about that birtherism or whatever it was called, calling into question Obama's heritage, and he had to defend himself. So I don't really know if it's really her or if it's really us.
That is a great call. I honestly don't know, but here's the deal. Most of this happens during the primary, when a person's running in a primary. We get an opportunity to truly vet that person, meaning that they're on stage, they're debating against a sea of other people, and we get to flush all of that out. So by the time you hit a general election, we know what we need to know about your background, about who you are. And that way you can focus on policy in a general. The problem with Miss Harris is the first time, Vice President Harris, I got to call her by a proper title. Um, the problem with Vice President Harris is the first time that she actually ran in a primary, she quit before the first primary vote was cast. in Iowa, I want to say. The second time there wasn't really much of a primary. Joe got the endorsement of Clyburn, I believe, and that was pretty much it. President Biden, excuse me, not Joe. President Biden got the the backing of Clyburn, and that was the end of it. So we as Americans, we've never had the opportunity to vet her. So right now, she's unfortunately in a spot to where she's running for president in a general without a primary, and we're flushing out all the BS right now. Hopefully for her, it can all be flushed out by the beginning of October so that there's enough time for her to get some of her policy points in prior to the November election. If that doesn't happen, she's going to lose, and she's going to lose badly. That is her unfortunate situation at this time. So what all we're doing is going by her record, what she's done in the past, and what she has said. So when we're talking about the black versus Indian conversation, had we had an opportunity in the primary to flush that out, we wouldn't be talking about it right now. We'd have been able to talk about it in March, and that would have been the end of it. And she would have come out exactly where she stands, but she's now in a general where she can't really, technically she could, but I would advise against her coming out saying exactly where she is in regards to her heritage, because that's a whole nother can of worms that would be opened by the American people. So the best thing for her is to be authentically her Indian self and go ahead and run.
So I think this is what I have a problem with black people, right? Some of them, not all of them. It's okay if her mom raised her and her mom is Indian. It is okay for her to say, my mom is Indian and my mom raised me. If she has a black dad, it's okay to say, I have a black dad. Like, you don't have to choose one over the other. You can definitely acknowledge the people who raised you. Like, stop.
I would agree with you. I would 100% agree with you. But the problem again becomes she is the one who introduced herself. This is what she did back in 2018, 19, I forget. Introduced herself as to the American people as Indian. We didn't do that to her. She chose to do that. So now that she's trying to, let's say, connect with her blackness, and I put in quotes around that, we don't see anything authentic from her. So yeah, we're gonna flush her out. We're gonna call her on her BS. So she needs to figure out how to redirect the messaging and go straight to policy. But the problem is that she won't win on policy because she has flipped almost everything that she stood for, almost not everything, because she's still strong on the abortion, on the baby deletion piece, but she's flipped on damn near everything from fracking to oh man, there was another big one. I forget. But she's flipped on these policies. Ma'am, go ahead and give us a stance, stand on it, and run off of it. But her history, she can't run from her past. That's the other part. Anyway, I'm like, y'all know I could go on a while about the political piece, but she to me, she's doing things wrong, and I wouldn't even address race if I were her. Wouldn't even do it. Talk only about whatever policy I'm trying to push. That would be my advice to her.
I would agree. I think that we need to stop focusing on the skin tone and focus on policy. Because at the end of the day, even if she ain't black, neither one of them are. So we just need to be focusing on what it is that they can do for your family and how it best serves your household. I agree. Absolutely. Anybody else want to
I just truly wonder, because I do hear AP's point about policy, but I also wonder how many people, and I'm not going to front, I've been guilty of this too. So I'm pointing one finger at y'all, I'm pointing three back at myself. because I've been caught up in a hype as well, is that as people are looking, I'm not saying you're doing this AP, because I don't think you do. I think you thoroughly actually enjoy uh, politics, and I told y'all before I hate it because I don't think either party has either of our best interests at heart, period. So it is what it is for me. But caught up in just looking at the side that's going to prove or disprove your point, as opposed to really looking at things in its totality as a whole on both. Because I do hear people talking about what is her policy, what is her stance, what she's saying. But if you look up the information, like, it tells you. But then when you argue, like, well, she was for criminal justice reform, but then y'all say, oh, well, when she was a DA, she did da. Like, my thing is, but if you go back and look deeper into some of that stuff, what was it really looking like? I think a lot of what our research has been very superficial research. Like, we'll see something that is said on Instagram or TikTok, and then we run with it without thoroughly looking at the context of certain things, or the when she's actually, whatever program. I remember hearing something about some kind of program that divergent program or something. But I didn't go back and thoroughly read what the program entailed, how many people were actually impacted, how many Black people were impacted, was there an improvement in a reduction of criminal, like, we don't take the time to do any of that. We'll go and give a superficial argument about that just based on the fact of whether we like her or not. Same thing with Trump. Like, I hear on the opposite end, oh, he's done X, Y, and Z for Black people. He did this, policy with going into the bad neighborhoods and build businesses. But then when I looked up additional information, it was like, yes, that would have been a positive thing, but the outcome didn't really match up with the promises, stuff like that. So when we're doing fact checks and doing deep dives, if we take the time to do it, it goes back to my original statement, is that I don't think either political party has our individual best interest at heart. It's always going to be business first. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. The government itself is about business first. But if you do go back to look at some of this stuff, the questions in a lot of the stuff that people are saying is either intentionally being misinformed, and they're regurgitating what they heard, or they are, not really taking the time to look into a lot of the stuff that they're fighting about and doing a deep dive. And like I said, I'm guilty of that because I haven't done a whole lot of deep diving. It has been certain things, like I might hear you say something, AP, and be like, oh, I didn't know about that, and then look up that one thing, but not necessarily look at the historical context, all of that kind of stuff that, like, you enjoy doing. So that's the part that I'm getting frustrated with. And then, a lot of us that are having these conversations, truth be told, have not done the research. We've heard what other people have said, regurgitating what other people said, or have only specifically looked up stuff to prove our personal viewpoint. And I think that's where we're going wrong. We really need to do a deep dive on both and then make our decision based on that, and how what they've done will either impact us directly, or our family, or us as a community.
I wholly agree with you. You brought up two things, and I just want to let the audience know because I want them to go research this. Because one of the points Mistaken brought up is that oftentimes we look for information to validate our own point or to prove our own point. For example, one of the things that I'm going to reference, one of the things Ms. Taken said, and I want everybody to actually go look into it and go deep dive it. But there's one point where it says that Kamala Harris, as a DA, had one of the highest conviction rates among Black and Hispanic people. But when you dive into that, she had a program, and again, the program escapes me the same way that it escaped Mistaken. She had a program where you plead guilty. You could basically plead out of your sentence and go into this program. You stay clean or whatever it is, as long as it was a nonviolent offense. You stay clean or whatever the stipulations are, and your record is exonerated. That would be a great thing for both Black and brown Americans. However, the problem was a lot of those people would basically fell out in that year. And guess what? You pled guilty. You go to jail. So the onus was on those people, and she gave many of them an opportunity. She most of the time would give women the second opportunity. So, I mean, like you got a deep dive. I'm not going to give you all your information, but go ahead and go look into it. And then Ms. Taken brought up Trump's program regarding um, um, low, high crime, high crime, high poverty, uh, um, um, build back basically is what it is, and it was the opportunity zones. Here's actually what happened. It's a great idea. Basically, we're going to give grants and loans so that people can rebuild these lower communities. Great program done with great intent, right? However, what ended up happening, a lot of Indian and white people bought this property, were able to take advantage of those grants. And I can think of two neighborhoods that are actually pretty close to me that have basically that are in the process of being rebuilt, and they were completely gentrified.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the negative side of that. So if we don't take advantage of it, somebody else will, and they're gonna turn a profit, and that's essentially what has happened. So I recommend everybody that's watching, dive into all of this, and you make the informed decision, because right here we just gave two examples of two, in my opinion, very good ideas that could have greatly benefited Black people, and we didn't take advantage, or we failed the system. So let's do the research. Let's find the information, because it's out there. It's all out there. It's all public record, which is my issue with Kamala Harris, is because she won't stand on her own record. Like if somebody came at her and wanted to really go in at her as being a DA, that's a program I would actually highlight. I would highlight because I'm trying to show that that I was working to improve the community, right? But she backpedals away from it. It's insane to me. I don't get it. She's running from some of the good things that she's done, and she's not going to win that way. But anyway, that's all I got.
Anybody else want to add to that? Nobody knows. All right, so moving on to our next topic is a house divided. Cardi B. Y'all know Cardi B. Let me just say this. No matter what's going on, I think Cardi B has definitely evolved into she's slow stepping. But look, I remember her on Love and Hip Hop New York, and most improved. Most improved. She is most improved. Y'all don't think so? Did y'all watch her on Love and Hip Hop? Oh, most improved. Just go back and look at some old Love and Hip Hop clips. She's definitely matured a little bit, so it is, the word on the internet is she's pregnant and she's filing for a divorce. A lot of people had something to say about that. What are your thoughts on that?
From what I saw, she's filing for divorce or something because he was cheating. Was
Again,
that
again, yeah.
again? Okay.
This is the second time.
Yeah, that's what I thought I had saw. But
I guess that wet ass pussy didn't work.
supposed to say WAP.
Oh, my bad. My bad.
But so I agree. And I think that so I look at Cardi
You
B.
said
Right?
they ain't gonna keep no man. We've
I'm
said that.
I'm not
It
really.
won't.
Listen, I'm not really a Cardi B fan, right? But she seemed to have been very attentive to her husband. You know, she's the one who started. I mean, I even saw her on the internet, telling women they need to do better with, she had like a little rant and men were praising her for that. Then she, I think she buys him, she's spoiled, she does good with the kids. She seems to be, besides the song, and I've even seen her in the kitchen, even though she says she don't cook and clean. I've seen her do reels while she is in the kitchen. So, what did he go? Now we all got big faces and stuff. Um, we can't do nothing about it. So, what do y'all? He may have got a phone call. So, what do you guys think about that situation?
I think we shouldn't be wasting any time on Cardi B and Offset. We got much more pressing issues,
Like what?
like trying to make sure that you take care of your families, trying to make sure you stop feeding into all of the media stuff that goes on. Like, who cares about Cardi B and Offset?
Well,
I
we're,
mean,
we're, we're talking about the situation, not necessarily. So I know it's Cardi B. It's just a face of a situation because that
yeah,
happens a lot. And we talk
it's
about.
I mean it's the same situation. Like, many people get in relationships that's supposed to be forever that don't become forever for whatever reason, and then you left picking up the pieces. Like, you had another child with this dude, and now you want to divorce this dude, and it's just like, it's important to understand who it is that you're trying to marry, and he's probably not doing anything different than what he did at the beginning. He's probably been doing it since their relationship, and the thing is that if you try to understand this person before you marry this person, because in reality, when you're in a relationship with somebody, you know, you're going to see a lot of the issues. And then when you marry them, the issues get even heightened. So now the issues that you saw before continue to get worse. And then you're going to have to see this person all the time, and you got to work through all this stuff. And it's just like, I just get tired of seeing the same thing every day, different story, different person. And honestly, so many situations would be a lot more feasible if we took more time on the front end instead of trying to fix it on the back end. And it just like we were talking about with Kamala Harris and all this other stuff, we're wasting a lot of time focusing on the wrong stuff. Your family is jacked up. Nobody's looking after their family. People are looking after themselves and just being selfish with their money and their time and their lives. Nobody is, well, not nobody. A lot of people don't care nothing about their communities or trying to be a better image. Like, it's like, to me, kind of like what AP was talking about. There isn't enough consistency across the board when we present ourselves to people. Because let's think about it like this. You said that Cardi B was getting online and saying, hey, you should do this, women, you should do this, you should do this. But her music promotes the exact opposite. It's like more people care more about her music than her message of people doing better, or even that her own children shouldn't be listening to her music because it's not beneficial to really anybody. But yet, this is the thing that people really want to pay attention to. So it's just like, I'm tired of wasting our time talking about people that aren't really doing anything about us. Like, just not. Like, literally, yesterday, the community jump section that I'm a part of, we were basically paid to do an event for what we call the Hampton Roads Foundation. And the lady, her name is Dawn Lewis. She was on Different World. I think her character was Jaleesa.
Lisa.
She was one of the speakers there. She came and talked to us and this, that, and the third. And she was like, I really like what you guys are doing. And then we got connected with some other people that I actually went to school with that was like, yo, there's so much money that people aren't getting in this community. Like there's just butt toes of money that nobody's touching. And we want to try to see if we can work with you guys to get more money. And it's just like, there's people making real moves, doing real things in our areas, in our communities, in our cities. We ain't talking about those things. We're not working with those people. We're not trying to find those people. Only thing we're trying to find is the best reels on Instagram, market ourselves, look at everybody else's marketing, and it was just wasting our time doing absolutely nothing beneficial to us. Like nothing.
We suffer from a mentality thing, because like I look at like one, being an educator, two, just personal experiences with, family members and things like that, and then, being able to meet various, people of different, cultural backgrounds and stuff like that. Now, when I look at history, I can understand why there's a level of struggle in terms of some of the way that we think, right? But a lot of the issue that I see is kind of like what you were saying. We focus on the stuff that is the feel good stuff that don't take like a lot of effort. So we'll listen to music, we'll, play sports because those things are enjoyable, it comes natural, is easy. But the stuff that really takes time, effort, that you have to put work into in order to build to get to the next level, is like we lack the sustainability to do those things as a group effort. Individually, yeah, you'll like I could speak to a lot of people that I know who, you know poured into taking the time to build themselves, right? But a lot of times I think we have been conditioned to look for the handout, look for the hand up, as opposed to putting the work in. And like you said, HD, oh, we were already doing this, thing for the community, and we end up running into somebody else who's willing to help us. A lot of times we're looking for those people to come to us, as opposed to us already doing the work, and end up meeting people in those environments that'll give us even more opportunity.
So um, I'm just going to go back to a point that HD touched on, and I do agree with you. Welcome to the panel, Kenny. Um, and I do agree with you, HD. But I think these videos and using the celebrities for panel shows, I think it's a great opportunity to use those people's as examples and how you can pivot to the positive. For example, let's just use the Cardi B and Offset situation, right? They're not divorced yet. She gets on social media and says whatever she says. First, that's an opportunity for us to say things like, men, let's vet better. Women, vet better. Get the men in your lives to vet the men that you're interested in. Then it also gives us uh, an opportunity to promote healthy relationships, because that in itself, the relationship she had was apparently is not a good one based off of whatever she's saying on social media. The third thing I'd say is it's an opportunity for us to say keep your relationships off social media. That's the beginning of the downfall of a relationship. You're putting your whole life on social media. You're getting all of this feedback, and that can completely ruin any relationship. And we've seen it happen. So I think that's why we use these examples, so that we can actually talk about some of that positive and then spin it and go into a little bit of a deeper dive into that positive. So while I agree with your point, I think that is just that we can't miss these opportunities to try to better our communities.
Okay. My only counter is that you're essentially creating their drive to continue to look at social media because we place so much emphasis on the stuff, these people, these shows, these things, right? And you keep bringing out the things that they're constantly looking. You're almost like free marketing for all of the things that they watch all the time. I agree with you. It is a smart thing to use the information that they already know to try to insert new information in the hopes that it will plant a seed so they make some changes. But at the end of the day, more than likely, we're only feeding the exact same thing. This media outlet is more important than almost anything else in your life. We got Cardi B, we got Offset, we got Kamala, we got the wars, we got Tiny Desk, we got all of these things that's constantly going to be in your face about something instead of what you guys preach about all the time. Nobody is going outside. You're watching everybody else go outside. And you're judging your life based upon everybody else that is also living online. So it's just like I just get tired of just literally seeing the same thing. And like I said, you're not wrong as far as using these things that they already know to kind of insert what you need to get things moving forward. But I personally think we're literally creating the same thing. We're literally getting them still to focus on the thing that they watch all the time. Because guess what? There's going to be another show with another celebrity or another situation that we probably already know the answer to of why this is a bad thing. And we're going to continue to talk about it and we're going to continue to get the same results.
Fair
And yeah,
point.
I seem pretty pessimistic, but my biggest thing is to be like, we really have to really detach ourselves even from the things that we accept as normal, right? Because even in the music that we have available to us, there's a lot of stuff in the music that we really love that we do not do in our personal life. Like me personally, I don't smoke and I don't drink, but I used to love listening to some gangster, rap music, with smoking, drinking, cussing, doing all the things, right? And then you realize that you're like, hey, this uh this music, right? It's not good for kids. It's for adults. But somehow kids always get it. So one thing that I thought about like years ago was to in order for us to start fixing our kids, we need to even start fixing what we consider good adult behavior. And it's gonna suck because we like the stuff that we like. We like to smoke, we like to drink, we like to have sex, party, we like to do everything, right? But eventually, these kids are gonna pick up the things that are for adults as kids, and they're not gonna see anything wrong with it until a problem happens. So I think that's the only thing that I think would actually move us to a much better place if we change what we think is acceptable adult behavior.
The internet is the new blue magic. Good evening, everybody. That's not going to change. It's a norm. It's just adjustments needed to be made. If you look at a Cardi B and you look at uh, whoever her boyfriend is, was it Offset? Or whoever his name is,
Yeah, Offset.
here's the paradigm. You got them speaking what they speak. You got Amber Rose at the RNC with her catsuit almost dressed on, projecting an image. Everything is true. What you said on the prior topic regarding Kamala that you spoke passionately about, open the book, see what's there. make the educated conclusion when you look at these people and what they represent. When I hear you espouse on these things, there's always a record that's a cause and effect. When I hear people jump on her about certain things and just the most minuscule, as for color, her politics and what she's pushing forward should be paramount. You say she'll lose miserably if she touches the race card. I say she wins resoundingly if she goes back to the same people that helped Biden get in office, the women, and fight to get their rights back to their own bodies. And that will be an overwhelming success. I hear Mistaken say that blacks have been conditioned to look for handouts. Yes, we have. That's the same government or the same people that divided the black home in the 70s, which told you didn't need a man there. Just make sure that we could come and check, see no drawers or shoes. We can give you this money, this block of government cheese, these powdered eggs, and we could start doing the divide and conquer from back then. Where we're at is something that can't change. This is an inevitable future. We do need to get more connected. Ain't nobody jumping double dutch and going out there playing manhunt no more. Everything is accessible through the internet. And that's become a constant norm. You no longer have to teach your kids about sex. They're going to find out. You can't restrict or be a parent as long as they can go over their friend's house and see everything you told them not to do. As for you bringing out Offset and Cardi, a stripper that used to get laughed at, that found a gimmick that got her rich. And she's supposed to be the speaking point, a gang member. Because you can't call her Cardi, you got to call her Bardi, right? Wear red and you're showing out your toxic relationship with your belly out with all the wrong signals being pushed. It's agreed that shouldn't be a representation of us. It's actually sad also to see Megan Thee Stallion shaking her booty up on public TV for the consumption while we're talking about something serious. As for who could be the next leader of the free world, it's disgusting. But there's always cause effect on both ends. My vitriol comes when it's slanted to one side and people speak passionately about one side rather than the next. And I challenge people not to throw rocks and hide their hands when it comes to something that affects us all up here. Things is going to change. Hopefully, as AP says, that she puts out a solid presentation of what she plans to do moving forward. I already have a bias and I'm not going to change it because I will never vote for a grapist, pardon me. I shouldn't be saying that. He settled with E. Jean Carroll. Let's not gloss over that. You gave her $5 million for touching her up and you got found guilty because back then you had friends in powerful places. You didn't go to jail. Let's talk about campaign funding that you slipped through your lawyer who snitched on you after he did his time. We gonna act like that didn't happen? Okay, let's look at policies. He's done a lot. I wouldn't say him. I would say the people behind him that actually didn't want him in office. I could look at Biden, 94 crime bill, how you talked about people of my melanin. I have no love for you. I didn't go to your church to see you. I came for the message. I think that these discussions are necessary. Everybody has very powerful points to make. And as AP says, take your pen out, jot stuff down, be informed. You know, it's crazy that most people aren't like at least 4 levels up of the politicians that service them within their state. They couldn't name at least 3 of them. And that's disgusting. And then the same black people that be in the barbershops crying, oh, this, that, and the third. When's the last time you grouped up and then went to your public office, your borough president, because I live in Brooklyn, and say, this is what my neighborhood wants. This is my petition sheet. If you don't get this done, you up out of here. Start grassroots from that level and work your way up. And when AP and others come in, they say what they say, they have a right to say it. Because just like Mistaken said, you're looking for a handout, but what's the work? When did you roll up your sleeves and put the work in for what you wanted for the generations to come? I ain't sparing the ride with them either. Because I know I put boots on the ground because we have King Talk on the other side. I know I'm one man. I can only do so much, but I'm moving progressively forward. And the sisters as well, because you're teachers. Overworked, underpaid. One of the most priceless professions that you have in this country. You play
That's
a
a
part in
fact,
it too.
brother. Go ahead, keep going. I was just saying that's a fact. There's not much you said that I disagree with. We will likely never really ever see eye to eye politically, but every point that you just made, spot on, bro. Spot on. Man, keep cooking it up.
I think that we need more of these discussions, but we need to be able to be approached, able to walk things back that we are incorrect on, because there's a couple of times you made me concede. I went back, checked it. I was like, yeah, you're right, AP. I glossed over that. I didn't catch that one, but the conversation still needs to move forward because these
Manny,
voices are.
not just real quick off topic. Nas made me eat my words several times, and I had to own that shit, bro. Marcus has done it to me. HD has done it to me, and that's the thing I think about. Um, when I think about our community, it's about being accountable and saying, you know what, I had to reevaluate, and I was wrong. We, for whatever reason, we have a hard time with saying that, with actually looking at ourselves and saying, shit, maybe the way I looked at that wasn't the right way to look at that. Mistaken's got my ass a couple times too. Shan will never beat me. I ain't worried about Shan. But you know I love you, Shan.
I ain't trying. It ain't no competition. I ain't trying. I didn't know I was in the competition.
But staying on the topic, I don't want anything near Cardi B talking about politics or moving anything forward. Her and her ex-husband or whoever she wishes to keep need therapy before you come on the stage. I don't want to see an Amber Rose up there talking about, I spoke to my daddy and placating and sipping a placebo up there so people can look at your big booty and they're not listening to your words. They're just looking at your body. Get up out of there. We can just refer a couple months ago when you're fighting with Joss and Hernandez. Now you're up on the podium. Go sit down. You're not a representation.
Thank you for calling it out. It's funny. I was actually on X and went back and forth with these. I think there's a very distinct difference between a conservative, a Republican, and a diehard Trump person. What I'm going to say is I went back and forth with this Trump person regarding Amber Rose because apparently they didn't know who she was, and they were talking about how classy of a woman she was and how classy of a speech that was. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah. Anyway, that person blocked me. They don't like information.
What I find has happened is we went from only being good as entertainers, right? Entertaining, the others, right? To now being the entertainers ourselves, right? So a lot of times what I see is that we buy into the buffoonery. We like the pomp and circumstance. We're looking for all of that when a point needs to be made, like using celebrities to talk about social and political issues isn't new, right? The difference, though, is when I look back at the celebrity, like you had like Muhammad Ali, you know what I'm saying, who was an athlete. You had various people who understood, like they studied to show themselves approved. So when they were able to speak on issues regarding politics or social issues, they were well informed. The difference now that I see is that we're using celebrities um, to speak for us or represent us, and they don't. And then they also, on top of that, don't know what's going on either. And all we see is the dancing, the gyro, like, oh, but nobody has said a damn thing. And I think that's the part. Actually, my husband and I were just talking about that, about how, as you know, Black people, we continue to want to be entertained so we don't have to really do the work to figure out what's going on. We want to be in a happy state because so much of our life is struggle, for a lot of, so we looking for things to escape, right? But the lack of knowledge is what's hurting us even more, right? So it bothers me. Like I'm not gonna lie, like Meg the Stallion, like I am not one to really listen to her music. I'm not really one to listen to Cardi. To be honest, hip hop has changed so much for me that I'm not really into hip hop like that. Like I couldn't, how you were talking about naming artists, I couldn't name any new artists that I'm like, oh, I'm really feeling. I just kind of backed my way out of it once the mumbo jumbo stuff started coming out. I just didn't even understand what anybody was saying. So at that point, I was done. But what bothers me is that the money has become so important over the message that, like, when I look back at previous generations, like I was saying, like with Muhammad Ali, he stood on principle. So even if his money was at risk, so be it. My principles are worth more. Whereas now you won't see celebrities do that at all.
No, it goes under the radar. LeBron James has done quite a few things for the community. Regardless of what you think of him, he's done quite a bit. And I again, I'm the research person.
Speaking politics, though, he's not out in front speaking politics. Like y'all just say, Amber Rose. Who is she?
Well, you might want to review his career in outside of the NBA, because I have my own opinions about him as an NBA player. But outside of the NBA, I have nothing negative to say about that man and the way he moves and some of the things that he's done for the community. That I think that goes back to Kenny's point. We need to the information's out there. We need to be looking into it. We need to figure out exactly who's moving right, who's doing big things. And you know what? I'm a big proponent of put your money where your mouth is. So I've even donated to that man's cause. Again, like I'm just some random dude on YouTube, but them couple dollars that spread out over, let's call it 1 million people, can go a long way. And I loved your example with Muhammad Ali, and I'd even go so far to say Colin Kaepernick. I have my own uh, uh, objections to some of his stuff, but the knee was a big deal. I think he didn't do. I don't think it was big enough, but it was a big deal, and it got conversation started. Like we really need to support people that are really putting in the work outside of however they make their money, right? I don't think we put enough support behind those people. I understand we all have our own lives, our daily tasks that we have to go through and get things done in our own lives. But if we're going to be pro community, or if you profess to be pro community or pro black, or you're looking for positive lifts in the community, put your money where your mouth is. I promise you, $1 spread out over 1 million people donate $1. That's $1 million. And that money can be spent very, very well on our community, especially by some of these people really doing big things, and I just don't think we pay enough attention to it.
I was gonna say I agree with you about putting your money where your mouth is, but well, not let me say but, and let me say and. I think what could make an even bigger impact, because I'm not saying you don't need money, because you do, but human capital, I would say, is more important. So your time, I would say, is even more important. So if you don't have the money, that FaceTime does more, I would think, especially in our community, than the money. We've had money, we've had programs in our neighborhood that money help, for that. But what made the program work wasn't the money, it was the people. And I think a lot of times it's easier to throw money at a problem and not have to deal with the actual footwork that goes into solving the problem. I'll give you the money so you can do the work. But I think as a community, we need both. We really, really do, because there have been a lot of, like, well, when I got out of college, I was working in a youth bureau. Like, I know for a fact that is my calling. My people is my calling. And I have always been involved in things in regards to, like how I said, education. But I specifically, when I lived in New York, I specifically worked in Harlem. When I first moved here, I worked at a predominantly minority school, like those, because I know that that's where I need to be, right? But when I look at opportunities for us to show up for our community or for our kids in the community, I don't see it as much as I would like it to. We tend to put that responsibility and say somebody else will do it. But we need to do it. And I struggle with on the one hand understanding our plight, but then on the other hand getting frustrated at how long are we going to let this plight stand in the way of the work that we need to do. So it is a double-edged sword, being like how Kenny P was saying, at that grassroots effort aspect of it. It sometimes it gets very frustrating. I get upset at our people sometimes too.
Anybody else wanted to contribute to that conversation?
How about you, Miss Shannon? Any parts you'd like to give?
I think that y'all did a good job at summing that up.
It was real smooth segue.
It was because we didn't want to talk about Cardi B. But it'll work.
Oh, congratulations on your pregnancy, Cardi B.
Well, that's what married people do. They're supposed to
marry.
So it's not like out of order. She got married and had children the way you're supposed to do it. So
You're also supposed to stay married, but whatever.
Except for what? What did the Bible say? Sexual what?
Immorality. But it also says that even in those cases, you're still making a choice to either stay or go. You can, but if it was up to him, he was saying that, I'm saying, but he actually said, hey, if it was up to him, he would be like, no. But he gave you the ability to divorce because of the hardness of heart. That's it.
Right. So the first time it happened, she did not divorce. But I'm pretty sure there was a conversation that was had that said, listen, I'm going to forgive you this one time. But if you do it again, and what do? Do it again. Let's do it again. That's the word? That's the words of that song? Let's do it again.
Yeah. It's old school. Sidney Poitier, Bill Cosby. Yeah. So you got to be mindful when you start Bible thumping, because you could easily say that, and then you could also point out kings that had wives and concubines, and that's not under. There's no reference in the Bible of marriage. You did know that, right?
You said what now?
There's no reference of marriage in the Bible. You know that, right? Just union.
Under so union, but there is obey the law of the land, right?
Depending on
so the law of the
depending
land.
on who's in power. Name a king that had wives and concubines. What's a
No,
concubine?
people did have those. He didn't say that was correct, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. People did have. There was a lot of things that went on in the Bible.
That wasn't supposed to.
You sure you want, Shan? You want to stand on that hill?
So I want you to tell me the Bible verse that said it was okay to have a wife in that at the same time.
I want you to show me the Bible verse that says that it was unacceptable and that they were
Matthew
wives and
speaks
concubines.
of even if you look at another person and you're married, is adultery.
Oh, well, you mean no, that's coveting, not adultery. That's coveting.
So it doesn't say that though.
She's referencing what Jesus said, that if you looked at a woman lustfully, you have committed adultery in your heart. That's what she's referencing.
But they actually changed that. Adultery is that of the heart. That's speaking poetically, but that act is called coveting, if you look it up.
Yeah, that's also a very tricky thing as far as dissecting the Bible, because there are some things that are hyperbole that we have taken as gospel truth, instead of saying, hey, this was just an exaggerated way of saying this, or this was poetry, or this, like, yeah, getting into scripture and like understanding context, and also
So let me ask you a question. So are y'all saying it's okay to cheat on your spouse?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay, that's all I'm going to say.
Wait, you didn't ask me.
I said y'all. Did y'all say y'all means you all?
I didn't write the Bible. But if I go by the tenets of certain parts of the Bible, it would be considered okay, because it was only changed when you had concubines and they were pretty much accessible to the finances, because most people are in power. They also were in power of church. If you look at the Catholics, that's why you see the Catholic priests are not allowed to have wives, because they also have wives and concubines. That's documented. I'm a big student of John Henry Clark, Doctor.
It was something
John
that
Henry Clark.
I had saw that kind of explained this. So from what I had saw that was talking about this topic, was that it was never in God's divine plan for, like what you're saying, concubines and having, polygamy and things like that. But it did happen. If you look at the start, I'm just repeating what I learned.
No judgment.
You look at the start of creation, it was the start of one man, one woman. And then, of course, sin, came, and then we get into that process. But they said that if you look at all of the situations that were brought forth in terms of those people who were had multiple wives, if you look at their lives, you can look at the outcome of what happened in their lives, and the outcome and the things that occurred in their lives of those who were in those relationships. That outcome was not good.
Okay, mistaken. So their outcomes were basically because they shied from the favor of the Lord, not because of who they betted.
But that's out of the favor of the Lord, though. If that was not his divine plan, and his plan was to be with one woman and one man, and you operated outside of that plan, you're inviting stuff into your life that is not necessarily going to yield positive fruit, because you're not planted in the right soil, so to speak.
Okay, so if you're asking me, I believe you should cleave to one woman. If I was born in Nigeria and I was following their tenets, Those are men that advance the village and have 1, 2, 3 wives. If I'm on the other side of the world, how do I tell them they're wrong because they follow
But that's what I
Islam?
said.
If
You're
I'm in,
talking culturally as opposed
okay,
to
so
religiously. So
I'm
those,
just
yeah.
I'm just I'm just making it clear. I grew up in a Christian household, Bible thumper, island boy. You went to church 3 times a week. Sunday was super long.
Sound like this.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So, but we
So
touch these. I try to stay away from them because I use the words of Professor, rest in peace, John Henrik Clark, who was a professor emeritus who studied religion back and forth. And I also did the work as for studying. I believe there's something in it. I believe if you leave people with ego and narcissists to tell our tales, you should have questions. And most of us conform to what we believe in because we don't want to disappoint the people we love.
yeah,
It's
I
still in
think
West. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no. Well, I think that when we get on the subject of multiple women, multiple men, right? I think that
Multiple men. Oh my gosh.
I mean, listen, there's multiple men in the Bible too.
Yeah, I
But
know. Yeah. I'm just trying to
so,
remember that.
but
You're
here's
right.
here's the thing. I think that a lot of the leaders of the Bible encourage, one to one, right? Because it says in the beginning was Adam and Eve, right? So they always push towards, the one to one, right? What is interesting, even when we talk about like people like Solomon and all his infinite wisdom, right? God had no problem with him marrying other women. The problem came when he started marrying quote unquote strange women, right? And that also helps point to how powerful women's influence can be because he had already had a whole bunch of women prior to marrying those strange women. But God was like, hey, don't marry these women. And a lot of times when the guys married multiple women, right? Especially when you talk about like Israel, right? When he only married the first woman because the father decided like, yo, you can't get the one you want until you get the one you don't want because I'm not trying to have two daughters and try to like take care of one of them. I want you to take care of both my daughters. And then he eventually getting the other one. And it created a whole bunch of issues what Mistaken is talking about, that the one that he didn't want had majority of the children. The one that Israel did want had very few children, and he favored those children so strongly because it came from the woman that he wanted versus I think her name was Leah or something like that, which he didn't want to have children with this woman or didn't want to be with this woman, but he had majority of his kids from this woman. And there's been a lot of beef between having multiple women's in the word and stuff like that. So I think there's credence to what Mistakens talk about, but there is some level of gray to some degree when it comes to multiple wives and stuff like that.
When we
Very,
speak,
very small
when we
gray.
speak of King Solomon, he got old. His wives turned him to believe in other gods, and he fell out of favor of the Lord. That's how he went awry.
Well, I have a
Those same
question
women that
though.
you.
Just because the Bible describes what happened, does it necessarily mean it was prescribed? Like, so what I mean is that the Bible often talks about things that occurred in that time. Like,
Mhm.
keeping it real, that was the culture of that time, right? But even though that was something that occurred, it doesn't necessarily mean like it is describing things that happen without necessarily saying that it was God's ideal plan. I guess that's what I was getting at. So if we
I
could say
get
that
you.
it's wrong or whatever,
I never
I
said it
think
was. I
what
never
most
got to
people
a
is
conclusion. But
got
you
it.
got to run your own race because at the end of the day, nobody can tell you that you're gonna burn in damnation for not seeing life the way they see
Mhm.
life. Because that's why I gave you different dynamics. If you grew up in Asia, maybe you're following Confucianism. If you grew up in Sudan, maybe you're a Muslim. If you grow up in Spain, you're Catholic. If you grew up down south, and good old boy, maybe a Protestant evangelist. At the end of the day, I'm just saying you have to run your own race, and this is something that usually you hear utensils drop when you start talking about this in people's houses because they're so ingrained in, okay, this is the tenet of how I live, and if anything out of what I believe, you're a pagan, or you worship pagan people. It's just to have open conversation because I don't see you as evil. I might not see life the same way as you do. It's just how I treat you, how I go about having conversation with you as we talk about politics and every other thing that actually sets a precedent for how we live day to day and how we look at people. I think the basic minimums is you should be able to push out in this world what you wish to reciprocate back. You're supposed to try your best to be a good person, even though we are all flawed. If the Bible does it for you and it makes you a better person, stick to it. But I can't go up and start Bible thumping, throw my 900,000 page Bible on top and say, if you ain't following how I'm living, because I lived over here and it doesn't adhere to how you live over there and you still living peacefully on the other side of the world and I've never seen you, but you're a thriving thriving civilization on the other side. Who am I to say you're wrong? So that's when it could get real tricky, like HD said. But are you a good person at the end of the day?
Yeah, mistaken. We definitely conceded that, the conception and the overall themes that was given was 1-to-1, male, female, right?
And I'm in
And that
agreement. I
being
can't do no
fruitful.
800 wives. No, I'm good.
Man, I might could do 3, but I think
What?
after 3,
Listen, y'all struggling with one.
You gotta have a strong back.
Struggling with one.
But also, it's like I look at it like this: is that even though there is multiple interpretations, and you can kind of get a feel that people have came to the same conclusion uh, across the globe. I think the spirit is the same, and I think also like when you start diving into people's theology, like even some things in the word, it's like you read some of those things, and as you continue to grow and experience God, you kind of get a baseline of how he leads and guides his people. But that's why it's also important to be around other people that can help you to like kind of like get to that entire picture. Just like when I don't know, it was mistaken in somebody last class that we had where we were talking about the coin, or we was talking about the prism, right? One side of the coin says one thing, the other side of the coin says another thing. Now, our perception is repeating information that we can prove. But when we put both our perceptions and perspectives together and the facts that we present, we can actually get the entire picture, which is something that, Landon or Claudio was actually trying to allude to, is that, you got your own personal facts that can be proven, but the overall picture or the overall objective truth is that you guys are looking at a coin that has information that's different on each side. Same thing if you look at a prism. When you shine a light at a different angle, you get a different color. And this person is not wrong for saying, hey, the color is this, the color is this. But in all reality is that the more information that we receive, the better the overall picture that we get as far as actually getting to the truth of the matter instead of speculating on a whole bunch of people's opinions.
And I
So
would say
go ahead, Kenny.
to touch on that real quick, Amber Rose nor Cardi B is a representation of anything Christian values.
So,
I'll leave it there.
and my point is going to be just as quick. I agree with HD. I could do maybe 3. However, if I don't want bleach in my coffee, I better stick to one.
Facts. These women over here, listen, the thought of another woman being in a space, oh, fire and brimstone. You listen, she taking everything that you got. If you had nothing, you ain't gonna never have nothing. It's just like, but it makes sense why women and men only want one person because you know, we don't like the term possession, but you become possessive over the person that you choose, right? Even when we try to take away some of the hard language that's in the Bible, right? In the New Testament, it talks about us being his new possession, right? That means he owns us. He's the husband, right? And he's the wife. And even in the history of marriage, the woman was essentially a possession to the husband, right? So we kind of carry a lot of the same traditions, even though we're not traditional people. So I tend to look at things like try to more overall perspective of the Bible because I mean it's a lot to go through. And the more you keep reading it, you might see a different wrinkle or a different angle, or somebody else might bring it to you. And now you start seeing the picture a little bit more well rounded. So I try to give people a level of grace to some degree, but there be clear stuff in the Bible where I'd be like, y'all tripping. Like it clearly, very clear about this, and this. But yet we dance around it and won't be able to call people out about it. But it's just like, you know what? At the end of the day, sweep around your own door. Take time to handle your own business, you know, lead a quiet life, handle your own business. And then, if it should be a situation where you can actually try to impart wisdom, pray, care, show love to one another, do that. Take every opportunity possible to try to love on somebody and show them care. But they be clear. I mean, clear. Like I was like, yeah, that just sounds like a bad idea. And when people be doing certain stuff.
Just know that you, again, like I guess the point that Kenny was making is that you're making that judgment based on the lens of Christianity, because that's your belief, but not everybody lens is the same. Now what I can say is that um what I've come to learn or understand is that I grew up too, so in the church as well. I think most, especially from our generation, most Black people did. Um, is that this whole, like, the idea of unequally yoked, right? That I think a lot of people misunderstand that to just mean religion. At least from a biblical perspective, is that that was what I was taught. Being unequally yoked was marrying somebody of a different religion. But I've came to understand that is not about the religion itself. It's more about your foundation, your belief system, because you have people who get divorced who are Christians all the time. So if it was just about religion, you would think that they would not get divorced, right? Because they should share the same values, the Christian values that should make a marriage work. You would assume that. But I came across something that kind of articulated exactly what I was feeling and thinking, about how it's more about both of y'all sharing the same value system, because that is what really makes the marriage work. You can be Christian and both of us reading the same Bible, but I'm getting a different understanding, interpretation from it based on my own experience, based on maybe the church that I grew up in, or how I interpret it, or any of those things. And somebody else can read the same passage and get something totally different from it. But if we are not on one accord with understanding, it's not going to work. So I think sometimes people use religion, the Bible, to weaponize it. Um, and I'm like, what I've learned over the years is that regardless of what religion anybody's in, you can always find a common thread in those religions that really has to do with treating people like what they say, the golden word, treat others as the way you want to be treated, like having some kind of grounding in humanity, things like that. But like what I was saying, I had saw that a lady had explained it where when they talk about being unequally yoked, they were talking about like oxen and how you would use it to have them, pull. But if one oxen had like a weak leg or a weak right leg, but then the other one had a weak left leg, when you yoke them together, they would still be able to pull straight because their weaknesses weren't exactly the same. And they were strong in other areas, which were still able to pull each other forward. But if you had the same weaknesses, if both of them had two weak legs and they would veer off course. They wouldn't work together well. So the idea is to try to find somebody that is equally yoked with you. So you don't want to share the same weaknesses, basically. And I was like, oh, wow, that kind of hit the nail on the head. Go ahead, AP.
Well, if I can, I'm gonna kind of venture away from theology a little bit because my relationship with God is a personal relationship, and unless I'm gonna give my testimony, I can't tell somebody else how to do religion. I like that. That's not my place. Um, but I got a question, and this actually comes from reading some of the conversation in the chat, which is a very lively chat tonight. Um, for multiracial people, should they be allowed to be given grace to, let's say, pick whatever background they choose to pick, depending on the space that they're in?
Say that again so I can completely understand and
No,
process what you.
absolutely, because it's kind of a difficult question to ask. But for multiracial people, multi-ethnic people, should they be given grace to basically pick and choose what race they they claim depending on the space that they are operating in at the time?
I would say it's kind of like what we talk about knowing how to what's that word, operate differently when you're in different spaces. Oh my
Code
goodness.
code switch.
Code switching. Exactly. I think we do it anyway, right? When we're in business setting, we get our professional, selves together in that environment. When we in a well, if you're from the hood, you go back to the hood. You're not coming into the hood with your professionalism. You're adapting to your environment. So I think that's probably the same thing that I would say multicultural people do. Like I even see my mom. She's, from West Virginia. When I see her get around her West Virginia people, like we knew automatically when she answered the phone if it was family from West Virginia or somebody from business, because her country drawl be like like what is she talking about,
That.
right?
Mhm.
So I just think that for people who are multicultural, they I think we forced them to pick and choose. If they had to, they would just gravitate to whatever it is naturally that either who they're with, most of the time, right? But I do think that they get great. I don't even know if you would call it grace. Yes, I guess they would get grace because they have to pivot in a different way than we do.
So I think that my answer is gonna be a little different. I think that we may find it disrespectful. You know what I'm saying? We could feel some type of way about it. no, it may hurt somebody, because when you're picking one, you're leaving somebody out, right? But at the end of the day, just because you say you something, we talk about this all the time. I'm not gonna get into other subjects. Just because you say you something doesn't mean you actually are something. You understand what I'm saying? All of something. I can say I'm a bird, and at the end of the day, I can be like, I'm a white person, and you can look at me like, you know. And so I think that the again, we can say no, it's not right. You should want to embrace all of you, not just one side of you. But people do what they do. But does that change that it's who you are? Because at the end of the day, that last name belongs to an Afro, it belongs to a black man, whether she likes it or not. And sometimes we do follow the heritage of our moms, because our moms embrace, they're the ones who cultivate and all that kind of stuff. But again, just because Mike says there's something, I mean, we just look at it. If that map says you something else, like let me give you an example. What's the Alba girl? What's her name? Alba.
Jessica Alba.
Jessica Alba. Jessica Alba has been telling people she is Hispanic all her entire what I'm trying to say, throughout her entire career. Where George Lopez had her on his show, and he told her to do a mouth swab. Finds out she has absolutely none in her blood, right? So the reality is, she can sit here and say she is of Hispanic, all she wants to. But at the end of the day, according to this, did y'all see that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, he did. It was bad. She was like, "You mean nothing?" I was always told I was from Spain. He was like, "You're whiter than," and he named a white person. And so just because somebody said something doesn't make it true. You understand what I'm saying? I could be mad at my dad and be like, I could be a mixed race and be like, I don't even want to include him. But at the end of the day, when I have my kids, they're going to have that DNA. It's going to always be what it is. You feel me? And it may not come out with the first group, but you're going to have that one, it reminds me of people who passed back in the day, in the 50s. They'd be like, oh, I'm white, I'm white, I'm white, I'm white. But you had that one parent, and you prayed that one kid didn't come out a little darker than the rest of them. Y'all know they used to do that, right? Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that they're not. I mean, it just is what it is. You got black in you. It's just, you can say it all day, but it does not change the fact that you got black in you. That's what I'm saying. I know that was going on and on, but I took it a bit.
No, that's fine. I would call names like Dorothy Dandridge, Lena Horne, Etta James. That's from a different time. But guess what? It was easier to stomach them like a spoonful of honey among the whites that didn't want us in those doors, or we still had to use the back door and so on and so forth, and they got the privilege. I feel that if you're allowed to get in a space, get the door open, get the game and bring it back to you and yours, I don't see an issue with it. If you flip that coin, like HD said, if you get in that door and now you don't look back, you don't represent those who reared you, you belittle and denigrate them after that point, there's a problem.
And I think too, think about it this way. We don't know, I don't know enough about what Indians talk about, right? Because in her mind, the way she grew up, she may have felt like, oh, we're a mystery. Even though I know how the relationship that Indians have with black people, Indians also have a relationship with white people, right? So we don't know what their experience is, because she may be looking at it from the experience of her mom or whatever.
So you jumped to Kamala.
Huh?
You're speaking on Kamala.
Oh, yeah, I think that's why he asked that question. We were talking about that earlier. That was our first convo.
Here's the thing. The Indians that I know that are straight Indians, like I can only say my POV. They're not too preferential on blacks,
Sure.
and they tend to lean into the urban myth that blacks are bad people, they're thieves, and they believe what they see and hear. And most of those individuals, they go by caste system, so that's a definite taboo. You can't come home and bring somebody else that breaks our common traditions. But then when you're West Indian, such as I am, and you go to places like Guyana and also Jamaica has them, they also have the Asians and so on and so forth within the diaspora now. Those things wane a little bit more. And then you start seeing those relationships come to be. But when you start doing things such as a Tiger Woods, what is ablation? You
We talked about
use that, yeah, you use that term until you got caught cheating and she was swinging that golf club trying to kill you, and then
Let me
you
tell you this.
fall back to black.
Tell me if you live in the 90s, y'all know Tiger Woods was the first person to start putting them labels on it, because she was like, well, what is that? Y'all remember that? And you was like,
But to be honest, I think sometimes when you're in the position of, let's say, for lack of a better word, power, right? When you, well, no, not power, privilege. That's a better word. When you're in the position of privilege, because all of us sit in positions of privilege to some degree, right? And we don't necessarily have to take the time to think about how others feel or what situations they're in, because we're not in the minority in that sense. So I can understand that, even though like he was the first one that we're aware of that coined that term, I also can respect him for doing that, in a sense of, if I claim one, I deny the other side of myself, right? And I think a lot of times we took that to mean, oh, he's trying to act like he's not black. But I really do believe it is a way of him to acknowledge both aspects of who he is. And a lot of times in society, we do try to cut off aspects of ourselves in order to fit in the bigger part of society, like how we talk about men not being able to have emotions. They literally have to cut that side of themselves off to fit in a bigger society that, as Americans, we men are not supposed to be uh have emotions or be emotional. So I do respect the fact that he was trying to lead the way, not intentionally, but lead the way in saying, I'm accepting all of who I am. I'm black and I'm Asian. I'm not going to deny one part for the other. This is who I am. Either love me or hate me. And I can respect that.
And well, the reason I asked, I was looking in the chat, and again, it was extremely lively. We appreciate the participation to the chat, but I was looking through it, and there's about four people going back and forth about Kamala's heritage and lineage and the whole nine. And when if you go back far enough, you find out that on her father's side there's Irish. But does that part really even matter when he is truly more like a, from my perspective, when I look at him, I see more Afro Jamaican than anything when I look at him. I mean, me being honest about it. Even though she never really leaned into that side, that she can't deny that side either. So, and I'm curious, and the reason for the question is because I became curious. Am I being personally too hard on her because she's just now starting to really claim that side? We know she tried to lean into it. That's why she went to an HBCU to try to get into that side of her. If I had to say why she chose an HBCU, she wanted to likely tap into that side. Uh, and I, I I personally believe that she likely felt like she didn't really belong anywhere, and she's just trying to find her place. So that was the question why I was like, maybe I'm being too hard on her, and I'm willing to concede that, which is why I asked the entire panel, should that person be allowed to move through those spaces as they choose?
I think y'all using the word fluid, right? That's the new term.
That's the word.
I think in that regard, she is allowed to be fluid. Not just her. I think anybody who is of multiracial has the ability and should be able to do that. Like I know, like my uncle, he is Puerto Rican, and he did not teach his kids Spanish because he wanted them to assimilate as American, right? So you need to learn English. But in that, moving forward now, them having the ability to be bilingual would have been a benefit. But of his age group, being older, it was seen as something that would make their lives harder. So he wanted to ensure that they knew how to speak English and only English. But imagine if there was a culture in which knowing both of those aspects of who they are, being Black and being Puerto Rican, being able to speak Spanish and meshing those kind of cultures together to make them feel comfortable in who they are. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of times people are so quick to judge others, place people in categories. You got to choose. You know what I'm saying? That they end up never being able to really be the person who they are when we're talking about knowledge of self. They lack knowledge of self because I can't be completely knowledgeable of who I am unless I'm able to explore all of who I am. So just saying I have to be Indian or I have to be Black or I have to be this when you're multiracial, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
It's being in the room. I think you gave Tiger Woods a pass. He was in rooms when he became the athlete. Everybody bought Tiger Woods apparel. He was winning at like a crazy rate. And he was getting contracts left and right. He was in them rooms with those people that knew that you could not identify with your Black side. And he played the game. Like a lot of them do. They're not going to throw away their money. But then it toes that line of, okay, are you putting your dignity a dollar above your dignity? But he was never in that position per se until you got caught cheating. Girl crazy chasing you with the club, you crashing into stuff. Then you want the appeal of running back home. That's the same thing like a Candace Owens. You understand? You wasn't with us until the Daily Wire, wherever you was. You went and said what you said, and they politely said your services are no longer needed here. Now you're placating on Power 105, and you don't even know one of the staples within our community. God is good. She's there. Yeah, what's the rest of it? Don't come on home when it's convenient, even though you talk sweet about certain things. You're playing to the choir now, right? But she's not the only one. I remember when Hillary Clinton came up with the hot sauce in her bag. I think it's part of the game now. It's disgusting. I didn't like the thing Kamala said, oh, greens in the bathtub. I wouldn't eat no damn greens if you doing no damn bathtub and washed it like that.
Hell no.
I didn't get the reference to that. I was like, ill. Because I know what I do. Good for that.
No, you go get yourself a 2 5-gallon bucket to make it happen. Quit playing. Quit playing.
So I think that
Clean them greens.
Sharing her greens, and now she came on. Look at her.
you guys get your messaging, but I just want to reiterate: it's one thing to be like I said, a sellout. Only come around when you need us. You know what I'm saying? But that does not mean you're not black, because it just means he's a sellout. We can't, like, for example, Candace Owens. She's black, whether she wants to be or not. You're black.
Well, she accepted her blackness as wait. Let me rephrase. She's accepted the fact that she's black a long time ago. There's a difference between saying accept your blackness and accepting the fact that you're black. She knows she's black. When her and her family sued the school board, she knew damn well she was black. But
yes, Lord.
See, you see, Kenny, I researched a little bit. But I don't necessarily. I do disagree with the way she messages. I was about to say I don't necessarily disagree with the way she messages. I don't necessarily disagree with the points she tries to make, but I do disagree with the way she tries to message it. That does bother me a little bit.
The delivery of it, yeah.
Oh yeah, but the message itself, because I'm conservative. I'm actually extremely conservative. But that doesn't mean to me that I'm gonna vote for fucking Donald Trump when I go and look. This cycle I'm going to. I'll come out and say it. This cycle, my plan at the moment, unless some more shit comes out, I plan to vote for DT. I haven't yet. It'll be my first time.
And that's to be respected. Everyone has a choice.
That
doesn't mean I'm a demonizer. I'm like, okay,
you have to. I think that everybody needs to look at the policies and do what's best for them in their household. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, that's what we would like for you to do, is just do what is best for you in your household.
And, well, it's funny to me because far too often when you try to have conversations, if you notice, I try not to tell people how to vote. I try to give you a little bit of information so that you go dig yourself, because I understand that the research can be painstaking, but it's something about going and finding information yourself that is satisfying. That's all I try to do. That's all I try to do is say, hey, have you considered A and B? And I typically will do that for any political anybody running for office, and that's from the governorship to the president to the actual school board. We actually have 3 school board spots coming up here, and I hope these folks is paying attention. But all I do is try to give information, because what I see oftentimes is that people try to slant it. Oh no, you're not right, or no, black folks don't do that. Like, whoa, wait a minute. When the hell did we become a monolith? And this was a conversation Kenny and I had, what was it, 2 Sundays ago. But we're not a monolith. And we see things very, very different.
We do.
And that's okay. We need to learn to embrace the differences between us, because I think between those differences is where the solution is anyway. That's just my opinion. I could ramble on a little bit. And we're coming up on time.
Understand that being black means different. It looks a little different for everybody. I'm sorry.
Kenny, real quick question for you. Where did you grow up? What side of the country did you grow up on? North, south, east, west, midwest?
East. I came up here when I was 5 from St. Thomas, and I've been in New York 30 some odd years. Went to Virginia, Woodbridge for a little bit. Was in Charleston, West Virginia for about 6 months because my dad was a contractor. I was in DC for a little bit, Maryland for a little bit, then I came back up here.
And I'm about to ask a question. You're over 30, right?
I'm 52 in September.
Oh shoot! I didn't know you look good for your age, brother.
I work out, and I got a tiny head, like peanut.
And let me.
What happened, Shan?
Applause.
Huh?
Is that applause?
No, that's not a pause. That's me complimenting the brother. I ain't trying to fucking sleep with him.
I thought you were talking about what he said. I got
Appreciate you, April.
okay, never mind.
What you said,
Just a quick.
Shannon? Something you want to interject? Hi.
I just wanted to ask a quick question. Can you name one Wu Tang song? Wu Tang Clan song.
Enter the 36 chambers.
Told you, mistaken.
I can't name one.
Well, no, because talking about it's regional in terms of knowing. But what I'm trying to say is, I think it would have been more appropriate to ask about somebody for her age group because she's in her 60s.
Who's in her 60s?
Say who?
Is Kamala in her 60s?
Wait. Yeah. She got tested on by Charlemagne on a Too Short song. What's my favorite word? And she was like, I'm not gonna say that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go look back on it.
I'm gonna look that up. I thank you for putting me on game. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Charlemagne tried to catch her. She was like, I'm not gonna say that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
See, I would, because I was saying if that's your measure of blackness, I failed. Take my black card because
it's about the culture. It's literally about the culture. Each era, especially in hip hop, there's something big that happened in each era, and you could name any one song from like a major group. Like when I heard the clip I saw with her and Charlemagne, she was like, "Oh, Tupac, yeah, Snoop Dogg, you know," and I'm like, "Shit, anybody can name those." But what I want you to do, name me one song pre 1993 Too Short. Name me one song from E40. Name me one song from Spice One. All three legends on the West Coast.
So
she might blow your mind because she was over that side of town.
Listen,
yeah, but that would I think that is that not a fair expectation to hold. If you're gonna say you're part of the culture, you grew up in the culture, you're gonna know that. Like me, I'm gonna tell you everything you need to know about the South.
That doesn't mean everything. That doesn't mean. So let me ask you a question.
If we went Outkast, you could probably name an Outkast song, Shan.
I can name an Outkast song. So I can name several Outkast songs, but the people you just named, I couldn't name the songs. But
it's regional. The three people I just named are all regional to the West Coast.
Y'all making me forget my points. Jesus.
That quick?
Kitty, leave her alone.
Oh, I saw an interview with her with Kiki, and Kiki asked her, "So, what about your hair? Do you get silk press?" And she said, "Actually, I don't." She knew what a silk press was. She was like, "No." And she went through the whole process of how she gets her hair straight. She didn't question, "Well, what is a silk press?" She was like, "No." She knew exactly.
I don't fucking know what a silk press is.
It's a black girl. Exactly. It's
I'm a dude.
Black woman know what a silk press is.
Shit, I just started learning about hair texture.
Oh shoot!
I'm gonna keep it real. I ain't know that shit. I know to get it cut. I know I can go give me a ball fade or an uptown fade, and the shit look right with my head.
And I want to say this too. So to you, so I know in the past she has said I'm Indian, American.
She wasn't lying.
I
said, which she wasn't lying. She is.
Right. And you gotta remember too, because at that time there were no Indian representatives in Congress, right? So she would have been one of the first ones. So it was important for her to promote
acknowledge that part.
Acknowledge that. Look, here is an Indian woman. I have Indian in my blood, and I am in Congress. You know what I'm saying? So when she in Congress,
let's keep it a buck. Them times for women within those political areas were very touchy because it was still hardcore boys club. There's a lot of people that hold positions, that done a lot of foul stuff to women around there that tried to at least make a name for themselves. And there's a lot, even up to the Superior Court. Clarence Thomas, still not one of my favorite people because I know what he did to Anita Hill. You understand? It wasn't a space, and I get you have to read the room and play the cards that you're dealt. I feel it's a bad thing when you use it to belittle or denigrate your people. If you tell me I gotta play these cards that's dealt to me so that I could get myself in position where I could take care of myself and I'm not hurting anybody, and then you try to weaponize that against me as for the smallest and most minuscule thing, and then a couple of things that can easily be ironed out, but that's the main thing you're sticking on like you did Obama. Your race and your class. I think that's in poor taste. The more AP, I'm strong on what AP said. What are your policies? What are you putting on the table?
Oh, for sure.
That's important. That petty LaBelle stuff, you could sing that somewhere else.
I think that we all agree with that. Like I think that the reason why we brought this up is because a lot of people were bringing race into this, and it shouldn't have anything to do with race. I think that we should just take that out of the situation. And we had the argument about the race because it was just a conversation. But at the end of the day, when you're voting for somebody, it doesn't matter if they're black, white, or whatever. You want to make sure you vote for the policies that are best for you and your household. But I wonder, this is what I remember, I forgot to say. Y'all remember when Colin Powell came out, he was like, oh, but then once a black man ran, he was like, switch the vote. I know I'm a conservative, but
I really think
that really tickled me. No,
I'm telling you now, if he ran under the Republican ticket, I would vote for him. I like Colin Powell.
Who?
Colin Powell.
Really?
Absolutely.
I like Colin Powell too. You know who I thought would have been a good Democratic candidate? Gore. I love Gore. I like Al Gore.
Like
and
Al
the reason
Gore?
why I like Al Gore because we advocate for the same. Like I'm big on environmental things, like the air we breathe, emissions, things of that nature. Like I'm an advocate for. I donate to it. Like that's my thing. Okay. So that was his platform. So
And he lost.
and he lost, but not by popular vote. He lost by electoral vote.
That's what matters in a presidential race.
They actually need to get
don't
rid.
say it like he just lost. Like this was
He
like that.
Look. If you
Hillary lost.
Look.
He lost,
if you can get,
the damage that has been done to the environment ever since then. Imagine.
We're not even the biggest polluters, and we're not even in the top 5. But in regards to the popular vote, if you got all of California, all of Illinois, all of New York to vote one way, it would be very, very difficult for the rest of the states, minus Texas and Florida, of course, to even get close to the number. It would just be damn near impossible due to the population centers of the United States, which is the reason why the Electoral College, in my opinion, works out. Each state has a voice, and it's according to their representatives and the Senate. And I think they need to redo it and redo a census and get the correct count. That's my personal opinion. But outside of that, the Electoral College for a presidential race is the right way. Now, when we're talking governorships, like if you did an Electoral College by county, that would be the wrong way to handle that, which is why every other race is basically popular vote.
There is no
but I agree with the Electoral College.
I don't. There's no need for it.
There isn't. So wait. If your vote can be canceled, think about the population areas. Think about what the population areas are. We're literally Florida, Texas, California, Illinois, New York. 5 states. 5 states. So 5 states should determine for the other 45 who should be president of the United States.
That's unfair.
But it was all based in racism. Why the Electoral College was even created.
No, it wasn't. Not the Electoral College. What we're talking about when we get into redlining. See, when we get into redlining, that doesn't necessarily wouldn't have much to do with the Electoral College, which is why the census needs to be redone. So there can be a recalibration of House members Senate will remain the same, but of House members. That way, we get a more accurate count regarding the electoral college. However, that's not what redlining did. What redlining did was basically canceled the black vote per state, locally, and for that state. And it was an awful thing that was done, and that shit needs to be fixed too. Now, I think there needs to be a federal mandate to prevent redlining, and I'm not a huge fan of any type of federal mandate, but unfortunately, we got black people stuck in areas where their vote basically doesn't effing count. That to me is a problem. But nationally, as the electoral college goes, it's all about the population of the state, and you can always move and shift population centers. Just my opinion.
See, then you,
I guess
then
the
you
point is that if it's supposed to be a democracy, and
It's not. It's a republic.
and is a democratic republic, and we try to say that we have a democracy, so we need to live out what we claim we are. So my
There's
point
only one thing. Go
is
ahead.
that the people, if the people vote, and this is the popular vote, and like you said, if you spread out, you have some states that are more populous than others. But the thing is that not everybody in each of those states are even going to vote. So when
Whose
you
fault is that though?
right, but so my point is that it still should be based on the popular vote. The electoral college are supposed to, from my understanding, that they're supposed to vote the way that the constituents in their area have voted, and they don't.
That's not the way it actually works.
If you're a
Each state has its own voting rules on what the EC does. Every single
that's
state,
true.
which is why Nebraska is very, very different. New Hampshire is very, very, very different. And there's one other state I can't think of it right offhand, but they're very different. And that the number in the electoral college literally represents the representatives in Congress, which is why it's so important to get the census right. It's really important to get the census right. Now, the democracy piece of this, the people speak piece of it is how many representatives you have representing your state, and all of them are done by popular vote. Governorship, popular vote. State seats, popular vote of the voting district. Senate, the popular vote. There's only one position in the entire country that's done via the way of the old republic, and that is the presidential seat, because that person is supposed to, and I'm putting quotes around it, represent the states. The problem is we've gotten so far away from the way the United States was originally set up. We've gotten so far away from it with with the extra taxing, like we're overtaxed. We should only really be taxed by our state and not the federal government. The shit is just all kinds of wild now, and the government's entirely too big. But we've gotten away from the way it was originally designed, that, you know what, maybe you could be right. By the way we're being run now, maybe the popular vote should be it. But again, that president is one person to represent all 50 states, which is why the electoral college is so critically important. But again, we when was the last time we did a census in 2022, and that's not even accurate because of COVID? Come on, man. They got to get this shit right. Pardon me, I'm sorry. I got off on a tangent because that really, like, the way the United States is set up right now really upsets me. It's like, man, because it's hard for black people to really make change because of the way it's set up. Now that we have the knowledge, and now that we actually have a few resources, If we were able to truly combine the resources and do things the way we could in regards to unify, again, we're not a monolith, but I believe that there can be some unifying points within all Black folks due to the experience.
Y'all
We
better have
can't do that right now, but it is what it is. I'm sorry. I went off on a tangent. It's something about politics that really pisses me off sometimes.
All right, Dale Matthew, thank you. Harris, well, HD, salute. Have a fantastic night, everyone. Thank you. All right, you guys. Thank you guys for being here. I'll be having like 2 hours tops, honey. It's over 2 hours.
It's before 2.
And
And gotta go, honey. So, good night. We will see you again next week, possibly. Ta-ta.
Good night, y'all.